Hey guys, welcome back to RBR. I'm your host Raz. Finally, back in Germany, back on press trips, and it's an exciting one today. If you have any interest in EVs at all, behind me, I have the brand new Mercedes-Benz EQE. This is a mid-level sedan set to be underneath the EQS as a more attainable yet very similar car. So guys, the way that I wanted to show the car off to you is basically the way that I saw it for the first time as well. When you have a new vehicle, especially one with a one-bow design like this, it's really important that you get like a really good first look. So are you ready now? We're gonna unveil it and show you what the car looks like. Nice quick unveil, no teasing here. So here it is, here's the new Mercedes-Benz EQE. First impressions, for me certainly very similar to EQS as we all had assumed, with the spy photos, etc. If you don't mind me saying, same sausage, different length type idea going on here. But if you like the design of the EQS, that's certainly not a bad thing because it's younger brother carrying across a lot of those EQ elements. And I want to show you all of those as a kind of first impression on every bit of this car just to start with. So guys, this is actually the Edition 1. It comes on the exterior with an AMG line version. Inside we've got electric art, so you can mix and match, but I will show you what the electric art exterior looks like in this video as well. For now, first impression, AMG line, quite similar to EQS, isn't it? Particularly on our front end over here, you can see the typical A-wing, as AMG likes to describe it, with the chrome elements. We've got your typical air intakes with the curtains, black trim on the large curtain area as well. That typical AMG design here. Though quite different on EQE versus EQS, though the design idea is similar, is the grille, or the black panel as they call it. You'll see the lights and the grille all forming kind of one unit now, I feel, in the EQ cars. Has a different shape on EQE. It's a bit more curvaceous, the nose sticks out a little bit more. That's quite noticeable when you're looking from the top down on the famous Mercedes-Benz star. And these lights, as I said, a bit more curvy. The lights themselves are very different. EQS had the 3 dots that we find, for example, in the S-Class, whereas the EQE goes kind of a different route, breaking that familiar tick within our digital light here and creating something more unique to this car. But I think it's kind of blink and miss it, personally. Again, it's very similar between the two cars. I'm going to show you exactly what the two of them look like together, so you'll get to make a direct comparison as well. In our black panel here, we have the lovely Mercedes stars as well. We all love these now since it's been on the F1 car, and to see it now within production Mercedes-Benz cars is quite lovely. There is a normal black panel as well that I'll show you on this car over here. This is our electric art exterior, and we'll have a quick little walk around of this in a minute as well. Side view again, very similar to our EQS. You've got that one bow design that Gordon Wagner loves to talk about. This is a cab forward car, so you've got your A-pillar all the way here towards our front wheel arch. Very, very different to our typical Mercedes-Benz sedans that we've had in the past. So you have this section here, for example, where you have the model name EQE Edition 1, as we had with the S-Class. That's not something that you would see on another Mercedes-Benz. And really, it takes a lot of getting used to for those of us who are used to that more traditional design. The rest of the side, very clean, not that many lines, strong shoulder on front and rear, your flush door handles as you find in the new S-Class as well. Lower trim, very similar. You've got your typical AMG multi-spokes, very similar in design to say something like the new C-Class. And again, your roof line on the back here, this is all very EQS. So again, if you like that car, EQE, matching the family really well. Speaking of matching the family, rear end, this is actually quite nice. This is probably my favorite application of the single rear light bar on an EQ car so far. I think it looks the sportiest. I like the spoiler on the back. The diffuser is quite nicely designed. Your kind of positioning of the chrome here is very reminiscent of where an exhaust would be, which is interesting. And you've got kind of the diffuser element here, no doubt doing all the aerodynamic work that we're going to discuss soon. Let's check out the boot space as well. Not as much as, say, you'd find in your typical E-Class, but then when you go inside the car and you see just how much more legroom you have, that we'll do in a minute, then you kind of see why they've done the trade-off here to make EQE perhaps a bit more unique versus E-Class. So guys, this is first look. Love to know what you guys think of it. For me, I'm not a huge fan of cab forward designs. I personally prefer your more traditional looking saloons. I've made that very clear over the years. It certainly gives the EQE and the EQS a unique place in the market. I'm not sure about that front end. I think the curvaceous lights, to me, it does not scream Mercedes-Benz immediately to me. If you took away the star, what would it look like? I'm not sure. Personally, if it was me doing it, I would go for like a normal E-Class shape, or do something like the Project One on the bonnet, where you don't have the black panel, you have the star up here, kind of like that upcoming EQXX concept. I'd love to know what you guys think. One of my favorite features from the EQS is carried forward in part into this car. Let's get I like that, that's cool. That's not what I'm talking about though. Watch this, you jump in as the driver and, no hands. I love that. And of course, soft closing doors and a nice flush finish for our door handle as well. Charging port, there's only one here that we need to concern ourselves with, which is right here. You see you've got your AC, pop it off for your DC as well. Nice and simple, and you've got some indicator lights here as well. Another thing similar to EQS is this little compartment here. You think of something super important, maybe it is. It's just for your washer fluid. Have a look at this. Matches the EQS. So guys, here we have the electric art version. First big difference you see, of course, alloy wheel designs. They will differ. The main thing, I think, front end here. You can see this is our plain black panel option that I mentioned before. You haven't got the stars in between it. You haven't got the typical AMG type design with the A-wing. It's still aerodynamic, but in what they call it, electric art style. If you remember on our AMG line, we had those kind of exhaust-like positions for the chrome, whereas the chrome strip goes all the way across here. You've got less aggressive diffuser as well. Still got the spoiler though, which is nice, but again, setting itself apart from our AMG line on the rear. Now, let's have a deeper look. Let's talk about the batteries, talk about the range, performance, the engines that are coming, and I want to compare it directly in position in the typical RBR style to some other key Mercedes-Benz cars. Right guys, a bit more in depth now. Let's start with the first model that you can get in the EQE. Now the EQE is based on that EVA2 platform, shared again with the S-Class, no doubt, to be expanded in the future across a whole plethora of different types of vehicles. Our first one is EQE 350. This has got a 90 kilowatt battery and it's rear wheel drive only. You'll see the battery setup is going to be quite similar to what we found in the EQS. And while we had that huge range of 700 kilometers in the EQS, the EQE, despite having a smaller battery, is not far behind, though we haven't got the 100% official figures yet because it hasn't gone through all the certification, etc. It is said to be well over 600 kilometers, which when you think about it, is mind-blowing for this size of EV in the market. I mean, it's going to be an amazing car to do longer runs in. Now, in terms of charging it, again, we haven't got exact figures. The EQS, we know, would charge up to 300 kilometers worth of miles within 15 minutes. EQE is said to be not far behind, despite having that smaller battery. Now, a lot of the magic behind that is thanks to the aerodynamics of both vehicles. EQE, following in the footsteps of its big brother, while it's not got the record-holding aerodynamic value that the EQS has, it is again said to be not far behind, and loads of testing has happened to make sure that the aerodynamic shape was as efficient as possible. Now let's talk about the power and performance that the EQE 350, the first version that we have, will bring. We're talking about 215 kilowatts, so about just under 300 brake horsepower worth of horsepower, so probably 292. We've got torque of probably around about 500 Newton meters. Again, we haven't got the exact figures. The 0 to 60 looking at EQS should be around 6 seconds. So again, for an entry-level EQE, these are pretty impressive figures. When you think of what a diesel E-Class would do in a similar part of the market. There will be a 4MATIC version to come in the future as well, which will of course add an electric motor on the front, larger battery as well, as we've seen in the EQS. With that type of vehicle, we're probably looking something close to 500 brake horsepower, Newton meters of up to 800, a 0 to 60 closer to 4 seconds. So more variants of the EQE coming. You know I love my variants. Will there be an EQE AMG? Well, we just put out our video for the new EQS AMG, so you can get an idea from that what an AMG version of this car just might be like. Now, let's compare it directly to EQS. Now, as you can see, of course, it is shorter, being the baby brother. You can see the wheelbase is shorter. Of course, we're going to have less room inside. How much less? We'll find out in a minute. But you can really see the similarities, particularly on the side. The front, less so. When you compare them directly, you can really see the difference of the front black panel, but generally, very obviously, part of the same family. Right, guys, inside, that's never going to get old. I love that feature. Let's turn the car on. I love the fact you get a sound when you turn an EV on. Who actually does that these days? Hardly anybody. Now, this is one of the first EVs I've ever sat in that actually has an acknowledgement when you turn the car on, or you power it on, or you power it off. That's the first place I want to start. I know in our usual interior reviews, I always show you the exhaust sound at the end, which has got nothing to do with EVs. But with this car, it's got 3 different sound profiles because we've got the optional extra over-the-air update of the sound experience. Now watch this, or listen. Did you hear that? So the car is actually on now, and with sound experience, which you can turn off, you get a consistent, like a hum, as if something's on, and then when you turn it off, that's epic. I love that. And there's 3 different sounds for it as well. I want to show you all of the 3 startups and what they all sound like when you turn the car off. Each one has a consistent hum, and it's really, really cool. Right, guys, so Silver Waves is basically your comfort mode. Next one, Vivid Flux. This is like your middle level or your sport. And finally, the sportiest one, Roaring Pulse, which is part of the over-the-air update. Right, now for the purposes of this review, I'm going to keep the car on. Let's put in our identification. No, I'm not Amy, but for the sake of this review, I am. We've got fingerprint sensor here. We've got facial recognition to recognize the driver as well. We've got voice recognition, so a lot of security features in play, which is great. Because we've got that consistent hum of the sound experience, I can actually turn that off in here. Very easy to do. Pop it off, and it's gone. Now, the first thing, of course, that everybody's going to notice is the MB UX Hyperscreen, and you should. It's identical, in fact, to the one in the EQS. It's a great thing for EQE buyers, and it works in the exact same way. You've got 3 screens in here, all which meld into one. I think the whole melding aspect, personally, could be done a bit better because it does look like 3 screens. There is some nice kind of fade out within the software itself, but it does look like 3 screens. But that kind of fades into the background because the point of all of this is how the car interacts with not just the driver, but the passengers. For example, you've got your second screen here, which has all of the functions, or pretty much the major ones that are available here for this passenger. This passenger can also watch TV and videos in Europe. The coolest thing about that is the driver can look across and he can only see the content for, say, 2 seconds, and then it'll fade out because there's a camera here watching me, looking at how long I'm staring at that, and then it'll cut it off for me, so it'll just fade it out for me, which is pretty amazing. We saw this come into like the GLE and stuff, where it knew who was pointing at the screen and who was giving instructions in terms of the vocal assistant, which finds its way in here as well. But this is clever stuff. It's not just a second screen for the sake of having it. It's like entertaining the person sitting here. Then you've got this huge screen here in the middle, whereas in the S-Class, you've got the vertical one. In Hyperscreen, you have this massive screen. If you don't option Hyperscreen, you get the same look one as the S-Class, so a vertical screen in 2 different sizes. Hyperscreen gives you really, though, the full experience. You get this massive navigation page as your main page. Then you've got this 0 layer that Mercedes talk about. And what this is, it's the most common options that you use that the car itself learns that you are most frequently using. So we've been using the comfort doors so much today, as you've seen. So comfort doors has come up here as a suggestion in the 0 layer, the main UI, if you like, of the car, learning what we like to do more often and bringing it to the forefront Again, very clever stuff. The rest of it, it's your MBUX system. You've got your energizing comfort, again, an OTA update. I must mention at this point, rear axle steering is OTA update as well, either in 4° or the full 10° available in EQE, just like the EQS. Your ambient lighting is there as well, multicolored. There is a really cool one, which is an EV-based one, where when you're accelerating, it goes red. When you're braking, it goes blue. And when you're coasting, it all goes green. So it interacts with the way you're driving. I love the fact you get the different driver zone elements in the front as well, the different designs, particularly the sports one's quite cool. In terms of the shape of the dashboard, it all raises up here, and it's very, very dramatic with this rose gold line that goes through it with the vents, etc. I mean, I almost can't see the bonnet at all. Maybe I need to adjust my driving position. Edition 1 comes with some unique trim like you see here, and the blue color at the top, etc. You've got a storage unit down here at the bottom, which is no doubt going to be quite useful. The car starts and stops with a nice button over here. You've also got your EQ, 360 camera, your dynamic select for your different modes, etc. as well. One of the coolest bits, like the EQS, is the turbine vents in the front, merging like a lovely analog feel with something so much more digital. But the fit and finish of the whole car, like we saw in EQS, really on par with that car. I think it looks really quite fantastic inside. One oddity in here is that we have the standard steering wheel. You can get the Edition 1 with the AMG line one, and that would of course be more in keeping. This is in fact the electric art interior melded with an AMG line exterior, so you can do that if you want to. That's reflected in the way the seats are. The AMG ones are going to be more bucket seat like. Now I want to take you in the rear and show you just how much space you have in this versus something like an E-Class. 90 millimeters more legroom we've got in this versus an E-Class. There's loads and loads of space for the passenger. This is, despite the fact we had the less boot room, we've got so much more leg space, and it differentiates EQE to E-Class. Headroom I'm not sure about, because I'm, what, 5'10", and I've not got a lot left here. Jamie is a bit taller than me. He sat and he seemed okay, but I think that sloping roofline, quite reminiscent of CLS, might harm the headroom, but you've got loads of legroom here, so you can kind of chill and, you know, slide back a bit, get comfortable. It's very, very airy, and the panoramic roof at the top helps immensely as well. So guys, that's it. That's your EQE. It's the mid-level EV sedan from Mercedes-Benz. I'm not so convinced about the exterior. I want to see more specs of it. I don't like the front cab design. I've said it a lot of times. Interior, I'm totally sold on. I love the sound experience. I can't wait to actually drive the car, see what that is like. That's going to be quite cool. But if you've enjoyed this video, as always, please do like, subscribe, share. Got to get RBR up to 1 million subscribers. Hit that subscribe button. I would really, really appreciate it, guys. And I'll see you guys next time.